UN News.
If you're in the UK, I would be paying attention, because this is, I think, definitely going to pertain to you in the foreseeable future, especially if you're like many of their audience. So I pulled this from Craig Murray, right, who writes about 36-minute trials and no jury, right? So apparently 2,000 upstanding citizens, most of them elderly and many infirm, hustled through this mass injustice process will be a defining moment in the UK's headlong slide into fascism. So this is about supporting Palestine action, right? I don't know if you remember the protests in the UK not that long ago about how people were in support of them, and they were getting charged with terrorism and whatnot. So those charged with terrorism for supporting Palestine action will have no jury in trials limited to 36 minutes each, with prison sentences up to 6 months. These are the plans for Starmer courts for mass trials of anti-genocide protesters. These plans are devised by Justice Michael Snow. He is the epitome of judicial prejudice. When Julian Assange appeared before Snow in his first hearing after being dragged from the embassy, Snow called Assange a narcissist, even though Assange had nothing but to confirm his name and no evidence had been led. Snow has now decreed that these 2,000 people charged under Section 13 of the Terrorism Act with supporting Palestine action will be tried in batches of 5 at the rate of 10 people a day, giving 36 court minutes for each defendant. This is a farce, a spectacle of mass show trial. The 36 minutes includes both prosecution and defense cases and cross-examination. At a scheduled hearing this week, one of the accused, 72-year-old Deborah Wild, objected that these trials would be far too short to present a proper defense. Snow snapped back, "I'm satisfied that the time is sufficient. I am not going to give more time. Your only remedy is the High Court." As I am sure Snow realizes, ordinary people cannot afford to go to the High Court. The worrying thing is that the trials will be held before judges, including the appalling Snow, with no jury. Here is the relevant part of Section 13 of the Terrorism Act. So we've actually talked about this before in regards to the UK Terrorism Act, particularly in regards to Phantom Parrot. I highly suggest you UK listeners go and actually look at Phantom Parrot, one of the segments on our channel. But person in a public place commits an offense if he A, wears an item of clothing, or B, wears, carries, or displays an article in such a way or in such circumstances as to arouse reasonable suspicion that he is a member or supporter of a prescribed organization. Okay? A person commits an offense if the person publishes an image of A, an item of clothing, or any other article in such a way or in such circumstances as to arouse reasonable suspicion that the person is a member or supporter in prescribed organization. So, and a person guilty of an offense under this section shall be liable on summary conviction to A, imprisonment for a term not exceeding 6 months, a fine not exceeding level 5 on the standard scale, or both. Okay? So, perhaps the most astonishing thing about this draconian legislation is that arousing suspicion is actually the offense. It does not matter if the suspicion turns out to be well-grounded or not. The suspicion could be totally wrong, but if you are aroused to suspicion on reasonable grounds in a policeman's head, you are guilty. So it is an offense of strict liability. Your intent is not considered. You may have been considered to stop a genocide. You may have been most concerned to stop a genocide or oppose the destruction of free speech. Judge Snow and his ilk will not care. They only want to know if some half-educated cop suspected you of supporting a terrorist organization. There's no jury to whom you can explain your actions and which would be highly likely to sympathize. I have seen it as an offense of strict liability, likened to possession of Class A drugs, but actually it isn't. The correct analogy would be a crime where the offense was arousing a suspicion you possessed Class A drugs, whether you actually had any or not. The experience of watching 2,000 citizens, most of them elderly and many of them infirm, slaughterhouse queue of mass justice and into prison with little opportunity to defend themselves will be a defining moment in UK's headlong slide into fascism, the best available way to fight this ridiculously unjust process, which has been directly opposed by UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk, by Amnesty International, and by Liberty, is through the legal challenge to an absurd and oppressive law. This is being done in both England and Scotland, which are separate jurisdictions. I am the petitioner in the Scottish case, says Craig Murray. These are precedents for different decisions in the different jurisdictions. The Scottish courts found former Prime Minister Boris Johnson's prorogation of Parliament illegal. The English courts legal. Ultimately, the Supreme Court decided in favor of the Scottish courts. It is also possible that Palestine action should simply operate legally in one jurisdiction and not the other. The law is frequently different in the two countries. The rationale of those legal case is explained here. Thoughts, Care Bear? What do you got?
This is a tactic to scare people. That's really all it is.
For sure.
You know, just the idea of having a 36 minutes? Like, that just seems so...
It seems this is like a fucking Monty Python sketch practice. This is like literally out of Pink Floyd's The Wall. You know, I can see the magistrate in the wig being evil and corrupt in the scene. Like, it's already... They've been through this already in, you know, fictional, like, dystopian Europe. So...
Right.
Yeah, I mean...
It's a tactic to scare people so that they don't protest. You know, because it's the idea of like, oh, if you do things that we don't like, then you're not even gonna have the honor, really, of having a trial, of actual trial, where people are able to vet the evidence against you in terms of the crime that you're committing, and just throw you in jail. You know, that's
UK80 in the
they're
chat.
just looking.
I am one of the 2,000 arrested for S13. Indy broke my exclusive regarding PayPal, closing the accounts of those charged so far at Witchwick Sam. So, yeah, definitely remember that. We've been covering... correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think Palestine Action exists as an organization anymore. They shut it down. So I don't know how if you wear any of their defunct clothing that you're a member of that organization regardless. The organization doesn't fucking exist. So, like, just for that reason, they, like, rebranded and renamed and offshooted and whatever, you know, just for that reason. So, I don't know what the deal is, but we'll see. You know, we'll keep an eye on this story for sure, because I think with everything happening, this kind of stuff gets, like, you know, the protests get a ton of, like, eyeballs and coverage, but then the aftermath of it rarely does. So we'll keep an eye on that for sure. But yeah, stay safe out there, UK. It's looking dangerous for you guys out there, especially during protests. So, you know, be on your P's and Q's. Anyway, talking about this sort of stuff is definitely why YouTube's decided to demonetize us with no jury in a 36-minute trial. So you can scan that QR code and go to ko-fi.com/Indie News Network and help us out. Send us a few dollary dues. We appreciate it. But if you can't, just like and subscribe, share this video. Allegedly, if you do that, YouTube likes us then. You know, so share this with your like-minded friends. And leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Otherwise, thanks for watching.